Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty Bell, watching the stars bend and twist as they dropped out of hyperspace. The journey from Earth had taken 3 months, but they had finally made it. Humanity's first ship to reach the Galactic Core was about to make history. "Sir, we're getting multiple contacts," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called out from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. 12 ships, no? Make that 20. They're surrounding us." Jake nodded grimly. They had expected this. Earth scientists had been tracking alien signals for decades, ever since they found that crashed ship in New Mexico back in 1947. It took them over 400 years to figure out how the damn thing worked. But here they were. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." The main screen flickered to life, showing sleek alien vessels that looked nothing like the boxy human ship. They were beautiful in a way that made Jake feel like a caveman carrying a club to a sword fight. The aliens had been traveling the stars for thousands of years while humans were still figuring out fire. Dr. Lisa Harper stepped forward. She was the mission's chief diplomat, a woman who spoke 7 languages and had studied every piece of alien communication Earth had intercepted. If anyone could make first contact work, it was her. "This is Dr. Lisa Harper of the Earth vessel. Liberty Bell," she said clearly. "We come in peace, seeking contact with the Galactic Council." The response came quickly. A voice that sounded like crystal bells chiming spoke in perfect English. "Human vessel, you will follow our ships to Nexus Prime. Do not deviate from the assigned course. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction." Jake felt his jaw tighten. So much for a warm welcome. Commander Rick Sullivan, his second in command, moved closer to the captain's chair. Rick had been a Navy SEAL before joining the space program, and Jake could see him calculating distances and weapon positions. "Easy, Rick," Jake muttered. "We're here to talk, not fight." The escort to Nexus Prime took 2 days. The alien ships, which Amy identified as belonging to something called the Zethari, maintained perfect formation around the Liberty Bell. They never communicated again, just flew in silence like they were escorting a prisoner transport. Nexus Prime was unlike anything humans had imagined. The planet was covered in massive crystal structures that reached into the clouds. Cities floated in the air, connected by bridges of pure light. Ships moved through the atmosphere like schools of fish, following patterns that seemed to have no logic but perfect grace. "My God," Dr. Harper whispered as they descended toward the landing platform. "It's beautiful." Jake had to agree, but beauty didn't make him feel any less unwelcome. The platform they landed on was clearly designed for ships much smaller and more elegant than the Liberty Bell. Their vessel looked like a metal brick next to the flowing curves of the alien architecture. A delegation was waiting for them. The Zethari were tall, thin beings that looked like they were made of living crystal. Their leader, who introduced himself as Prime Harmonizer Veltar, spoke in that same bell-like voice. "Humans," Veltar said, and somehow he made the word sound like an insult. "The Council will see you now." The council chambers were vast, with 12 raised platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held a different alien species, and Jake felt like an ant walking into a convention of giants. The humans were given a small area in the center, like defendants in a courtroom. The Valdorians spoke first. They were beings of pure energy, appearing as shifting patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. Their voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Another primitive species has achieved basic space travel," the Valdorian said. "They seek recognition from the Council." Jake felt his temper rise. Primitive? Humans had fought their way from caves to the stars in just a few thousand years. These aliens might be older, but that didn't make humans primitive. A new voice spoke up. This one was harsh and clicking like insects talking. The Corvani representative was a massive bug-like creature with 4 arms and eyes like black marbles. "Look at them," the Corvani clicked. "Soft skin, fragile bones. They probably break if you touch them wrong. What could such weak creatures possibly offer the galaxy?" Other council members joined in. The Narrators, who looked like walking octopi, claimed that mammals couldn't achieve true consciousness. The Drakmori, reptilian beings with scales like armor, laughed at human technology. One by one, the 12 species of the Council dismissed Earth as insignificant. Dr. Harper tried to speak several times, but she was either ignored or cut off. When she finally managed to get a few words out, her careful diplomatic speech was met with condescending silence. "We understand that humanity is new to galactic society," she said. "But we have much to offer. Our sciences, our arts, our unique perspective." "Your perspective?" The Valdorian's light pattern shifted in what might have been amusement. "You have existed for barely a moment in galactic terms. Your entire civilization could disappear tomorrow and the galaxy would not notice." Jake had heard enough. He stepped forward, his military bearing making several of the aliens lean back slightly. "Maybe you're right," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "Maybe we are new, maybe we are small, but we're here and we're not going anywhere. Humanity didn't claw its way out of gravity wells and across the void just to be patted on the head and sent home." The chamber fell silent. Jake could feel Rick and Amy tensing behind him, ready for trouble. Dr. Harper was probably having a heart attack at his diplomatic breach, but Jake didn't care. Someone needed to speak for Earth. The Corvani representative stood up, all forearms spreading wide. "The soft skin has spirit, at least. Perhaps they would make adequate servants once they are properly trained." "We're not looking to be anyone's servants," Jake replied coldly. "We're looking to be partners." More laughter from the alien representatives. The Valdorian spoke again, and this time Jake could definitely hear amusement in that otherworldly voice. "Partners require equality. You possess nothing we need, know nothing we do not already know, and offer nothing we cannot create ourselves. You are children playing with toys you do not understand." The formal judgment came an hour later. Humanity was granted probationary observer status in the galactic community. They would be allowed to establish a small trading post in the Rim territories, far from important systems. After 100 years of observation, the Council would consider whether humans had developed enough to warrant full membership. 100 years. Jake thought of his children back on Earth, of the generations that would live and die before humanity got another chance at the table. As they walked back to their ship, Dr. Harper finally spoke. "That could have gone better. Could have gone worse too," Rick said. "At least they didn't shoot us." Amy was checking her tablet, reading through the files they'd been given about their new home. "Kepler's Rest," she read. "It's a trading station in the Outer Rim. Apparently it's neutral territory where different species can meet without Council oversight." Jake nodded. "Sounds like exactly what we need. A place where we can prove ourselves without the Council breathing down our necks." As the Liberty Bell lifted off from Nexus Prime, Jake took one last look at the crystal cities and floating bridges. Beautiful, yes, but also cold and distant. The aliens who lived there had forgotten what it was like to struggle, to fight for every inch of progress. That might be their weakness, Jake thought. They had grown comfortable in their superiority, certain that nothing could challenge their ancient order. But humans were good at proving experts wrong. The journey to Kepler's Rest would take a week, plenty of time to plan their next move. The Council might think humans were primitive, but they were about to learn something important about human nature. When someone tells a human they can't do something, that human usually finds a way to do it anyway. And when someone tells an entire species of humans they're not good enough, well, that's when things get interesting. Jake settled into his captain's chair and smiled. The real work was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the Liberty Bell arrived at Kepler's Rest, and Colonel Beth Williams was starting to like what she saw. The massive trading station spun slowly in the void between star systems, a neutral meeting place where dozens of alien species came to buy, sell, and deal. Beth had been sent from Earth to take command of Forward Base Alpha, humanity's first permanent outpost in alien space. The job was supposed to be simple: keep the peace, learn about alien technology, and try not to embarrass the human race. But as Beth watched Sergeant Tony Martinez break up another bar fight between a Corvani merchant and a Drakmorian trader, she realized nothing about this assignment was going to be simple. That's the third fight this week, Tony reported as he dragged the two aliens apart. The Corvani was twice Tony's size, but the former Marine had handled bigger problems in Afghanistan. These bugs don't know when to quit, Beth nodded. The Corvani seemed to think their size and armor made them unbeatable in a fight. They kept picking on smaller species, expecting easy victories. What they didn't expect was humans stepping in to even the odds. Any serious injuries? Beth asked. Nothing a medic can't fix, Tony said. But word's getting around. The smaller traders are starting to ask for us specifically when they need security. That was interesting. Beth had noticed the pattern too. Species that the council considered minor were starting to seek out human help. They seemed to appreciate that humans didn't care about galactic politics or ancient hierarchies. If someone needed help, humans helped. In the engineering section, Kate Johnson was having the time of her life. The young engineer had been given access to technology that made Earth's best computers look like pocket calculators. But instead of just copying alien designs, Kate was doing something different. She was making them better. Look at this, Kate said, showing her latest creation to Dr. Sam Chen. The device looked like a standard alien data pad, but Kate had modified the interface completely. Their version requires 3 hands to operate efficiently. I redesigned it for 2-handed use and increased processing speed by 40%. Sam studied the device carefully. As the team's psychologist, he had been spending his time analyzing alien behavior patterns, and what he was learning worried him. That's impressive work, Sam said. But I think we have bigger problems than user interfaces. Kate looked up from her workbench. What kind of problems? Sam pulled up a holographic display showing ship movement patterns around the station. I've been tracking alien behavior for months now. The Corvani have been expanding their territory, but they're not reporting it to the Council. The Neridans have been conducting genetic experiments that violate about 12 different galactic laws, and the Drakmori are building up their military forces. So the Council species aren't as united as they pretend to be, Kate said. That's not the worst part, Sam continued. I've been analyzing long-range sensor data. There's something out there beyond the galactic rim, something big, and it's moving this way. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was having his own discoveries. The Liberty Bell had been assigned to explore the worthless sectors that the Council ignored. What Jake was finding in those forgotten corners of space was anything but worthless. Commander Rick Sullivan stood beside him on the bridge, looking at the ruins of another dead world. That's the 5th one this month, Rick said. All the same. Pattern. Advanced civilization completely wiped out with no sign of what killed them. Any idea how old these ruins are? Jake asked. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her scanning station. Carbon dating suggests they're about 50,000 years old. But Captain, there's something else. I'm detecting artificial structures under the planet's surface. Big ones. The away team that Jake led down to the planet found more than structures. They found a vast underground complex filled with technology that made even Council science look primitive. Most of it was damaged beyond repair, but in the deepest chambers, they found something that made Jake's blood run cold. Warning beacons. Dozens of them, all broadcasting the same message in a language that Amy's computers could barely translate. The message was simple and terrifying. They come from beyond. They consume all. Prepare. Back on Kepler's rest, news was spreading about humanity's strange effectiveness. Tony Martinez had become something of a legend in the station's lower levels. His security teams used tactics that left alien criminals confused and defeated. They worked together in ways that made no sense to species used to individual combat. How? Do they coordinate without speaking? A Neridian trader asked another after watching Tony's team stop a smuggling operation. They move like they share one mind, but they're clearly separate beings. The truth was simpler than the aliens realized. Human military training emphasized teamwork and communication. What seemed like magic to species that fought as individuals was just basic squad tactics to humans. Colonel Williams was in her office reviewing reports when the alert came in. A Corvani war fleet had attacked a human research station in what they claimed was their territory. 3 humans were dead and the research ship was destroyed. "This is intolerable," the Corvani admiral declared when he contacted the station. "These soft skins dare to enter space that belongs to the warrior caste. They must learn their place." Beth looked at the transmission records. The research station had been in clearly neutral space, well outside any claimed territory. The Corvani were testing human resolve, expecting the newcomers to back down like frightened children. They were about to learn that humans didn't work that way. "Tony, get me a full tactical assessment of their fleet," Beth ordered. "Kate, I need every modification you can make to our weapon systems. Sam, I want to know everything about Corvani psychology and tactics." The response came 3 days later. Beth had assembled a small fleet of human ships, nothing compared to the massive Corvani vessels. But size wasn't everything, as the Corvani were about to discover. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. Human ships were smaller and faster, using hit-and-run tactics that the Corvani couldn't counter. While the aliens tried to line up for honorable ship-to-ship combat, human vessels attacked from multiple directions, targeting specific systems, with surgical precision. When it was over, half the Corvani fleet was disabled, and the rest were retreating. Not a single human ship was destroyed, though several needed repairs. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The mighty Corvani, who hadn't lost a battle in 3 centuries, had been humiliated by the newcomer humans. Species that had lived in fear of Corvani aggression suddenly saw a new possibility. On Kepler's Rest, alien traders began approaching human representatives with quiet questions. Could humans provide security? Could human engineers solve technical problems? Could human tactics be adapted for their own defense? Dr. Chen analyzed the communications traffic and shook his head in amazement. "We're getting requests from 17 different species," he told Colonel Williams. "They want military advisors, technical consultants, diplomatic mediators. 6 months ago, the Council barely acknowledged we existed." "And now?" Beth asked. "Now they're scared. Not of us, but of what we represent. Change. The possibility that the old ways might not be the only ways." Captain Morrison returned from his latest expedition with more disturbing news. The ancient ruins weren't just on one world. They covered thousands of planets across multiple sectors, all showing the same pattern of sudden destruction. Whatever wiped out this civilization was thorough, Jake reported to the growing Human Leadership Council. But they left behind technology and warnings. They knew something was coming from outside the galaxy. Amy had been working around the clock to translate more of the ancient messages. What she found made everyone's blood run cold. "The warnings are specific," she said. "They call the enemy devourers. They consume organic matter to fuel their ships and reproduce. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners, and they don't stop until everything is gone." "How long do we have?" Beth asked. Amy consulted her calculations. "Based on the sensor anomalies Dr. Chen detected, I'd say maybe 2 years before they reach the outer rim of our galaxy." The room fell silent. 2 years to prepare for an enemy that had destroyed a civilization far more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. "Does the Council know?" Rick asked. Sam pulled up intelligence reports that his network of alien contacts had been gathering. "They know something is coming, but they're paralyzed by politics. Each species thinks they can weather the storm by sacrificing the others. They're planning to fortify the core worlds and abandon the rim territories. Including us," Beth said grimly. "Including everyone they consider expendable," Sam confirmed. Jake stood up, his face hard with determination. "Then we better start getting ready. If the Council won't defend the galaxy, maybe it's time for someone else to step up." As reports continued to come in from across human space, one thing became clear. The species that had dismissed humanity as primitive and weak were about to face a threat that would test everything they thought they knew about survival. And the humans, who had been judged unworthy of respect, were about to show the galaxy what Earth's children could do when their backs were against the wall. Admiral Pete Harrison stood in the command center of humanity's newest space station, watching the tactical display with growing concern. In the year since the Corvani defeat, everything had changed. The small human presence in the galaxy had grown into something that made the Council nervous. Pete had been promoted from captain to admiral in just 8 months. something that would have taken decades in peacetime. But these weren't peaceful times. Earth was building ships faster than ever before, and every vessel was needed. "Sir, we have another request for military advisors," reported Agent Maya Stevens, the intelligence operative who had become Pete's eyes and ears throughout. "Council space. This time it's from the Alteran Republic. They want to know if we can help them defend against Corvani expansion." Pete nodded grimly. The defeat of the Corvani war fleet had been like dropping a stone in still water. The ripples were still spreading, and every species in the galaxy was reconsidering their position. "How many does that make this month?" Pete asked. 17 species have made formal requests," Maya replied. "Another dozen are sending unofficial messages. They're all scared of the same thing." The same thing. Pete knew what she meant. Word was spreading about the approaching threat from beyond the galaxy, even though the Council was trying to keep it secret. Species that had lived in peace for centuries were suddenly building weapons and forming alliances. Meanwhile, Dr. Alex Turner was making discoveries that changed everything humanity thought they knew about galactic history. The archaeologist had been given unlimited resources to study the ancient ruins, and what he found was staggering. The civilization that built these cities wasn't just advanced, Alex explained to the gathered human leadership. They were the original inhabitants of this galaxy. Every species we know today evolved after they were gone. Colonel Williams, now a general due to rapid promotions all around, studied the holographic displays Alex had prepared. "You're saying all the Council races are essentially squatters?" "More than that," Alex continued. "The ruins contain star maps showing the original empire's extent. It covered the entire galaxy, with Earth right at the center of their territory. If their records are accurate, they had colonies on thousands of worlds that are now considered dead space by the Council." Captain Laura Davis had seen the truth of Alex's research firsthand. Her scout ship Eagle Eye had been exploring the galactic rim for months, following the ancient star maps to worlds the Council had never bothered to visit. "The outer rim is full of their installations," Laura reported. "Most are damaged, but some are still partially functional. We've found weapon platforms, shield generators, and something that looks like a galaxy-wide communication network." "Any sign of survivors?" General Williams asked. Laura shook her head. "Nothing living, but we found more warning beacons, and the message is always the same. The devourers consumed everything, then moved on to the next galaxy. The original inhabitants had just enough time to leave warnings for whoever came after. The warnings were proving accurate. Long-range sensors had detected the first devourer scouts entering galaxy space 6 months earlier than expected. Captain Davis had been unlucky enough to encounter them directly. The meeting had been a disaster. Laura's ship had dropped out of hyperspace to find 3 vessels unlike anything in the galaxy. They were organic-looking, with hulls that pulsed, like living tissue, and weapons that fired streams of corrosive energy. "They didn't try to communicate," Laura reported, her voice still shaky from the encounter. "They just attacked. Our shields held for maybe 30 seconds before they started eating through the hull. I lost half my crew getting out of there." But Laura had brought back something valuable. Sensor readings that showed exactly how the devourers fought, and more importantly, how they could be hurt. Agent Stevens had been busy with her own discoveries. Using contacts throughout Council space, she had uncovered the truth about galactic politics. "The Council has known about the devourers for 5 years, Maya reported. They've been debating response options, but they can't agree on anything. The Valdorians want to evacuate to another galaxy. The Corvani want to fight them in traditional fleet engagements. The Neridans are trying to develop biological weapons." "What about a unified response?" Admiral Harrison asked. Maya laughed bitterly. "They're too busy arguing about who's in charge. Each species thinks their way is the only way, and none of them trust the others enough to coordinate properly." Meanwhile, humanity was taking a different approach. General Williams had initiated something called Operation Minuteman, based on historical precedents from Earth's past. "We're not trying to match the Devourers ship for ship," she explained to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "We're building a defense network that can adapt and respond to threats across multiple sectors simultaneously." The plan was ambitious. Instead of building a few massive superweapons like the Council races preferred, Humans were mass-producing smaller, more flexible systems. Every human colony was being fortified. Every trade route was being monitored. Every citizen was being trained for evacuation or defense. Kate Johnson, now chief engineer for the entire human fleet, was working miracles with alien technology. We've reverse-engineered Corvani armor plating, Valdorian energy systems, and Nereidian biological computers, she reported. Our new ships aren't as pretty as council vessels, but they're tougher and more adaptable. Dr. Chen had been studying devourer behavior patterns based on the ancient records and Captain Davis's encounter. What he found was disturbing, but useful. They're not evil in any way we understand, Sam explained. They're desperate. Their original galaxy was consumed by something even worse, and they became what they're running from in order to survive. They consume organic matter because they have to, not because they want to. Does that help us fight them? Admiral Harrison asked. Maybe, Sam replied. They're predictable in some ways. They always go for the largest population centers first, and they have trouble adapting to tactics they haven't seen before. If we can stay unpredictable, we might have a chance. The first test of human preparedness came sooner than expected. A devourer scouting force attacked a Valdorian border station, completely destroying it in minutes. The energy beings that had seemed so powerful during first contact were consumed like everything else. The Council's response was exactly what Maya had predicted. Panic followed by political arguing, followed by demands that all lesser species evacuate to prevent contamination of their defense plans. General Williams received the evacuation order on a Tuesday morning. Humanity was to withdraw all forces to Earth immediately and remain there until the crisis passed. Her response was brief and direct. Negative. The message sent shockwaves through Council space. No species had ever directly refused a Council directive before. They're ordering us to abandon our colonies and leave the galaxy to its fate, Williams explained to the emergency session of Earth's government. I say we stay and fight. President Helen Carter, who had been elected specifically to handle the galactic crisis, didn't hesitate. General Williams is correct. We didn't come this far to run away at the first sign of trouble. The decision meant that humanity was now officially in violation of galactic law. Any Council species would be within their rights to attack human forces, but something unexpected happened instead. Other species began joining the human resistance. The Alterans formally withdrew from Council authority. The Centauri Federation declared independence. A dozen minor species announced they would rather fight alongside humans than evacuate to unknown fates. Admiral Harrison found himself commanding the largest rebel fleet in galactic history. Ships from 20 different species, all flying under human tactical doctrine, all preparing for a war the Council claimed was unwinnable. We're about to find out if David can really beat Goliath, Pete told his staff as reports came in of more devourer forces entering the galaxy. Captain Davis, recovered from her injuries, volunteered to lead the first reconnaissance mission into devourer-controlled space. We need to know how many we're facing and where they're going next, she argued. The mission launched with 3 ships and returned with 1. But the intelligence Laura brought back was worth the cost. They're not just randomly consuming worlds, she reported. They're following a pattern, heading straight for the galactic core. And there are a lot more of them than we thought. The holographic display showed the truth in stark detail. Hundreds of devourer ships were moving through outer rim territories, consuming everything in their path. Their target was clearly Nexus Prime, and the other core worlds where the Council races had their capitals. How long do we have? General Williams asked. Laura consulted her navigation charts. At their current speed, maybe 18 months before they reach the core worlds, less if they split their forces. Admiral Harrison stood up, his face grim, but determined. Then we have 18 months to do the impossible. Maya, I want intelligence on every devourer weakness we can find. Kate, I want production increased by whatever it takes. Alex, keep studying those ancient weapons. If the original inhabitants of this galaxy left us anything we can use, find it. General Frank Cooper watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as the last Council fleet disappeared into hyperspace. The retreat had been complete and humiliating. 3,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships commanded by officers with centuries of experience, had lasted exactly 4 hours against the devourer main force. Frank had tried to warn them. The former Army Ranger had spent months studying every piece of intelligence about devourer tactics, but the Council admirals wouldn't listen to advice from a human. They formed their traditional battle lines, advanced in perfect formation, and died with mathematical precision. "Sir, we're getting distress calls from 17 systems," reported Major Dan Phillips, the Special Forces officer who had become Frank's intelligence chief. "The devourers are splitting their forces and hitting multiple targets simultaneously." Frank nodded. It was exactly what he had expected. While the Council fought like it was still the age of honor duels, the devourers fought like a plague. They spread, consumed, and adapted faster than any conventional military could respond. "What's our fleet status?" Frank asked. Admiral Sarah Mitchell, the naval commander who had revolutionized human space tactics, consulted her reports. "We have 47 operational battle groups scattered across 19 sectors. Not much compared to what the Council just lost, but we're mobile and ready." That was the key difference. While Council fleets were designed for massive set-piece battles, human forces were built for guerrilla warfare. Small, fast ships that could hit targets and disappear before the enemy could respond. Captain Julie Brooks was leading one of those hit-and-run missions right now. Her fighter squadron had been testing new tactics against devourer scout forces for weeks, and the results were encouraging. "Devourer ships are tough, but they're predictable," Julie reported after her latest mission. "They always try to grapple and board targets for consumption. If you stay mobile and keep hitting them from range, they can't adapt fast enough." The breakthrough had come from studying the ancient records that Dr. Turner kept uncovering. The original galaxy inhabitants had learned to fight the devourers, at least for a while. Their tactics were similar to what humans were developing independently. "Stay dispersed, stay mobile, never let them pin you down," Julie explained to the other squadron leaders. "Think of them like a swarm of angry wasps. You can't stand still and trade punches. You have to dance." But the real crisis wasn't in space. It was on the ground, where millions of refugees were fleeing the advancing devourer forces. The Council had issued orders for selective evacuation, which meant saving the important people and leaving everyone else to die. General Williams faced the hardest decision of her career when the first refugee ships arrived at human space. Council law was clear. Any species that harbored refugees without authorization would be considered hostile and face military action. "We have 3 million civilian refugees requesting sanctuary," reported Colonel Martinez, now in charge of refugee operations. "The Council is demanding we turn them away." Beth looked at the tactical display showing the approaching refugee fleet. Families from dozens of species fleeing in whatever ships they could find, begging for help from the humans they had once dismissed as primitive. "Colonel Martinez," she said quietly, "open the docking bays. All of them." "Ma'am, the Council will consider this an act of war," Martinez warned. "Then they'll have to get in line behind the devourers," Beth replied. "We didn't come to the stars to abandon people in their hour of need." The decision changed everything. Within days, human space became the rallying point for the galactic resistance. Species that had never spoken to each other were working together under human coordination, united by the simple principle that everyone deserved a chance to survive. Engineer Kate Johnson found herself designing defense systems for a dozen different alien technologies. "The good news is that everyone brings something useful," she reported. "Corvani armor, Valdorian power systems, Neridian biological computers. The bad news is making it all work together." Dr. Chen was working overtime to coordinate communication between species that had fundamentally different ways of thinking. "It's like being a translator at the most important meeting in galactic history," he said. "And half the delegates don't think the other half are really intelligent." But somehow it was working. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptation and cooperation, exactly the skills needed to forge an alliance from desperate refugees and beaten armies. The first major counterattack came when General Cooper launched Operation Overlord, named after an ancient Earth battle. The plan was simple in concept but complex in execution. Hit the devourers where they didn't expect it, using tactics they had never seen before. "We're not going to fight them fleet to fleet," Frank explained to his commanders. "We're going to cut their supply lines, hit their staging areas, and force them to fight on our terms." The operation began with Major Phillips leading commando raids behind devourer lines. His teams used captured alien technology to infiltrate occupied systems and gather intelligence about devourer weaknesses. "They're not invincible," Dan reported after his third mission. "Their ships are biological, which means they need certain minerals to repair and reproduce. Cut off their access to those minerals and they start to weaken."
Kate Johnson had been studying captured devourer technology, trying to understand how their organic ships worked. What she found gave humanity its first real advantage. "Their ships are essentially living creatures," Kate explained. "They regenerate."
"Damage. But they also have vulnerabilities that mechanical ships don't have. Certain frequencies disrupt their nervous systems. Specific chemicals are toxic to their biological processes." Working with refugee scientists, Kate developed new weapons that could actually kill devourers permanently instead of just damaging them. The secret was combining human metallurgy with alien energy weapons and chemicals found in the ancient ruins. Admiral Mitchell coordinated the first major fleet action using these new weapons. The battle took place in the Kepler system, where a devourer force was consuming the outer planets. "Remember, we're not here to trade punches," Sarah told her fleet commanders. "Hit them fast, hit them hard, and get out before they can adapt." The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships used swarm tactics, attacking from multiple directions while alien allies provided cover fire. When devourer ships tried to grapple and board, they found themselves facing soldiers from 20 different species, all trained in human combat doctrine. Captain Brooks led the fighter squadrons in a coordinated attack on the devourer command ship. "It's bigger than a space station," she reported, "but it's still just biology. Find the nerve center and cut it out." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the devourer force was completely destroyed, and for the first time since the Realm invasion began, consumed worlds were actually liberated. News of the victory spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had given up hope suddenly saw a new possibility. The devourers could be beaten. But the enemy was learning too. The next devourer attacks came with new adaptations. Their ships started carrying shields against the human chemical weapons. Their tactics became more unpredictable. "They're getting smarter," Major Phillips reported after a particularly difficult mission. "They're studying our methods and developing counters." Dr. Chen had been analyzing devourer communication patterns, trying to understand how they coordinated their attacks. What he found was both fascinating and terrifying. "They're not individuals the way we understand it," Sam explained. "They're more like cells in a larger organism. Each ship shares information instantly with all the others. When we defeat one group, the entire race learns from that defeat." General Cooper realized they were facing an enemy that could evolve faster than any traditional military could adapt. "We need to stay ahead of their learning curve," he told his staff. "Every time they counter one of our tactics, we need 3 new ones ready to go." The war was becoming a deadly game of innovation. Humans would develop a new weapon or tactic, use it successfully for a few battles, then watch as the devourers adapted and countered it. The only advantage humanity had was their ability to innovate faster than the enemy could learn. Captain Davis returned from a reconnaissance mission with disturbing news. "They're not just randomly consuming anymore," she reported. "They're building something in the galactic core, something big." The long-range sensor data showed massive construction activity around Nexus Prime. The devourers had consumed the Council capital and were using the raw materials to build a structure that dwarfed entire star systems. "It looks like a breeding facility," Dr. Turner said after analyzing the data. "If they complete it, they'll be able to produce new ships faster than we can destroy them." Admiral Harrison, now commanding the largest fleet in galactic history, studied the tactical situation. The mathematics were simple and stark. Humanity and its allies had maybe 6 months before the Devourer production facility came online. After that, the war would be over. "We need to hit them at the source," Pete said. One massive assault on the galactic core. Everything we have, all at once. General Williams looked at the casualty projections and felt her heart sink. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the largest armada in galactic history prepare for the final battle. 2 years of war had changed everything. The Liberty Bell, humanity's first ship to reach the stars, was now surrounded by vessels from 37 different species, all flying under human tactical command. Final fleet status report, Jake ordered, his voice carrying the weight of command that came with leading 3 million souls into the most dangerous mission ever attempted. Admiral Sarah Mitchell consulted her displays. We have 2,400 ships ready for the assault. Not counting fighters and support craft, every species in the Alliance has contributed something. The diversity was staggering. Sleek Valdorian energy cruisers flew alongside blocky human destroyers. Corvani battle carriers worked with Neridian bioships. Even former Council enemies had joined the Alliance when they realized the devourers meant extinction for everyone. Commander Rick Sullivan, now bearing the scars of a dozen battles, approached with the final tactical briefing. Long-range sensors show the breeding facility is 90% complete. Intel suggests they'll start mass production within days. Jake nodded grimly. The massive structure that the Devourers had built around Nexus Prime was larger than most moons. If it became operational, it would produce new Devourer ships faster than the Alliance could destroy them. Any word from the infiltration teams? Jake asked. Rick's expression darkened. Major Phillips checked in 6 hours ago. His teams are in position, but the casualties have been heavy. Devourer security around the facility is unlike anything we've seen. Dan Phillips and his commandos had been operating behind enemy lines for weeks, gathering intelligence and sabotaging Devourer operations. The Special Forces officer had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of all, infiltrating the breeding facility to plant charges that could destroy it from within. Dr. Lisa Harper, now serving as the Alliance's chief diplomat, joined the calm briefing. We've received confirmation from the civilian evacuation fleets. All refugee populations have been moved to safe sectors. Whatever happens today, we've saved everyone we could. That had been humanity's greatest achievement, Jake thought. While the old council had been paralyzed by politics, humans had organized the largest rescue operation in galactic history. Billions of civilians from hundreds of worlds now lived in human-protected space. Engineer Kate Johnson reported from the fleet's technical center. All ships have been equipped with the new resonance weapons. We've also distributed the chemical payloads based on Dr. Turner's archaeological findings. If those ancient records are correct, this should be our best shot at stopping them permanently. The B. Weapons were humanity's final innovation in the war against the Devourers. By combining alien technology with discoveries from the ancient ruins, Kate had created devices that could disrupt the biological processes that kept Devourer ships alive. President Helen Carter appeared on the communication screen from Earth, addressing the fleet that represented the last hope of galactic civilization. You carry with you not just the hopes of humanity, but of every thinking being in this galaxy. Whatever the outcome, know that you have already proven that courage and determination can overcome any obstacle. Jake felt the weight of those words as the fleet began its final approach to the galactic core. Through the viewports, he could see the terrible beauty of what the Devourers had created. The breeding facility stretched across space like a dark flower, its organic surfaces pulsing with alien life. Devourer forces are moving to intercept, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her sensor station. Count is, dear God, there are thousands of them. The enemy fleet that rose to meet the Alliance was larger than anything they had faced before. Devourer ships of every size and configuration, from fighters no bigger than human shuttles to massive bio-dreadnoughts that dwarfed entire space stations. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake announced to the fleet. Remember your training. Stay mobile, support each other, and trust in the person next to you. Today we find out if David really can beat Goliath. The battle began with long-range bombardment as both fleets closed the distance. Devourer bioweapons met Alliance energy beams in a spectacular display of destruction. Ships on both sides began dying within minutes of contact. Captain Julie Brooks led her fighter squadrons into the heart of the enemy formation, using the swarm tactics that had proven so effective in smaller engagements. "Stay tight, people," she called to her pilots. "We're the knife that cuts through their defenses." But this battle was different from all the others. The Devourers had learned from 2 years of defeats, and their tactics had evolved. They no longer tried to grapple and board enemy ships. Instead, they used their superior numbers to overwhelm Alliance defenses through sheer mass. Admiral Mitchell found her command ship surrounded by Devourer vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. "They're using some kind of biological stealth system," she reported. "Our sensors can't track them until they're right on top of us." The tide of battle began to turn against the Alliance. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Worse, the creatures were adapting to the new weapons in real time, developing resistances that made subsequent attacks less effective. General Frank Cooper, commanding the Marine Assault Forces, watched his boarding parties fight for their lives on captured Devourer vessels. "These things learn fast," he reported. "Every trick we use works once, maybe twice, then they counter it." But humanity had one advantage the Devourers couldn't counter. They fought for something greater than survival. They fought for the right of all beings to exist, for the future of galactic civilization, for the idea that intelligence and courage could triumph over mindless consumption. Commander Sullivan led his ship through the enemy formation toward the breeding facility, knowing that even if they stopped the immediate threat, the war would continue. "Major Phillips, are you in position?" he called over the comm. Dan's voice came back filled with static and the sounds of combat. "Roger that. My teams are placing charges throughout the facility's core structure. Give us 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Rick looked at the tactical display and realized they didn't have 10 minutes. The Alliance fleet was being systematically destroyed, ship by ship, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Then something unexpected happened. Dr. Chen, monitoring Devourer communications from his analysis ship, made a discovery that changed everything. "They're not just mindless consumers," Sam broadcast to the fleet. "There's intelligence behind their actions, and it's in pain. The Devourers aren't evil. They're afraid." Using linguistic analysis programs developed over 2 years of war, Chen had finally broken the Devourer communication code. What he found was a species driven to consume by desperation, not malice. "They're refugees," Sam continued. "Their own galaxy was destroyed by something worse than they are. They became what they're running from because it was the only way to survive." Jake Morrison made a decision that went against every military instinct he had. "All ships cease fire, communications, patch me through to the Devourer command vessel." The fleet fell silent as Jake's message went out in the crude Devourer language that Chen had decoded. "We know what you're running from. We know you didn't choose to become this. There has to be another way." For a moment, the battle stopped. Devourer ships held their positions, apparently receiving orders from their command structure. Then a response came back, transmitted in broken but understandable galactic standard. "No other way. Must consume or die. Galaxy will feed us or we all perish." Jake thought of all the refugees that humanity had saved, all the species working together in the Alliance fleet. "There is another way. We can share this galaxy. There's room for everyone." The negotiation that followed took place while both fleets held their fire, weapons trained on each other but not shooting. Dr. Harper used every diplomatic skill she had learned to broker the most important treaty in galactic history. The agreement was simple. The Devourers would stop their consumption of inhabited worlds in exchange for uninhabited systems where they could establish colonies. The Alliance would help them develop sustainable technology that didn't require consuming other species. Major Phillips and his teams disabled their charges and helped evacuate Devourer civilians from the breeding facility. "Turns out they have families too," Dan reported. "Kids who've never known anything but running and hiding." The war ended not with a great battle but with understanding. The Devourers, given hope for a different future, began the slow process of changing from consumers to citizens. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the same council chambers where humanity had first been dismissed as primitive and unworthy. But now the chamber was different. Representatives from 63 species sat as equals, including devourer delegates who were slowly learning to communicate without consuming. The new Galactic Charter recognizes the fundamental right of all intelligent species to exist and prosper, President Carter announced to the Assembly. No species shall be judged inferior because of their age, technology, or origin. The memorial that was built on Nexus Prime bore names from every species that had fought in the war. Human names stood alongside Corvani, Valdorian,